Welcome, Seekers of Wisdom. I'm Elizabethina's Garden. I'm an Akashic Records reader and remote energy healer. If this is your first time on my channel, I discuss topics that intersect with spirituality, creativity, and science, and in a non-denominational way, if that makes sense. If these topics interest you, please keep watching and consider subscribing to join my community. Our goal here is to nurture and support one another as creative and conscientious people in a global world. Today's topic comes from a request by one of my newsletter subscribers after they watched my recent video about the wood snake year of 2025, which sparked an broader interest to explore divine feminine deities associated with the snake archetypes. So I decided to pick one that I'm most comfortable with and perhaps a little less well known outside of the Mandarin-speaking cultures. Today we will explore ancient Chinese creation mythology, spiritual archetypes, and alchemical wisdom. NuWa is the goddess of creation and transformation, whose myth reflects both the power of the divine feminine and the transformative potential of the snake archetype. To discuss her, we must also talk about the Wuxing, the 5 elements, and touch on Daoist Alchemy. You'll see why in a bit, so let's get into it. NuWa is the mother goddess of creation in Chinese mythology, and she is often depicted with the upper body of a beautiful woman and the lower body of a serpent or dragon. The earliest references to NuWa dates back to the 4th to 1st century BCE in the Shanghai Jing, which details her role in creating and repairing the heavens, as well as molding humans. And another key reference is from Huainanzi, which is a philosophical text dated from the 2nd century BCE, which elaborates on her contributions to the balance of the cosmos. I really wanted to focus on NuWa only in my video, but it kind of doesn't make sense to discuss her without discussing her brother slash husband. So shown here is various depictions of Fuxi and NuWa, so they're siblings as well as husband and wife, and they are mostly depicted with the human upper body and the serpentine tails. The two are said to have emerged in a primordial world of chaos. In one version of their origin story, they were born from the cosmic separation of heaven and earth, or duality. As siblings, they were forced to roam a desolate, unshaped world until a great flood wiped out the rest of humanity. Left as the sole survivors, they recognized their responsibility to restore life and bring order to earth. So according to legend, the two of them climbed Kunlun Mountains, Kunlun Shan, which is the location where deities reside, and they built a great fire and they prayed for divine guidance until they received a response. So fortunately, their prayers were answered with the approval of heaven to repopulate the earth by performing a sacred union. Their union marked the rebirth of humanity. So after restoring the balance, restoring nature and the beautiful animals, legend has it NuWa felt something was missing, aka she was bored. And she wanted to create humans in her likeness to liven up the place. So from clay, NuWa sculpted human figures with her hands and breathed life into them with her divine power. While Fuxi taught humanity essential skills such as fishing, hunting, and writing. An important aspect of their iconography includes the tools they wielded to shape the world. NuWa is often depicted holding the compass, a symbol of her power to measure and craft the heavens, while Fuxi is depicted with a carpenter's square, symbolizing his role to bring order and structure on earth. The square, the angles, is structure and order and discipline and divine masculine, while the compass creates circles, softness, curves, bringing beauty, poetry, and creativity, and maybe irrationality to the world. Fuxi, in addition to giving humanity practical skills like hunting and writing, he was also credited for the invention, or rather he brought forth the 8 Trigrams, or Bagua, which the I Ching is based on, which provided a framework for humans to understand the cosmos. These trigrams are a cornerstone of Daoist metaphysics used in practices like feng shui, divination, and internal alchemy in order to align humans with the universal energy. Additionally, Fuxi is credited with decoding the Hétú Luòshū, the river map, and Luò writing. And these are 2 mystical, mathematical, sacred geometric blueprints of the universe. And these blueprints, deeply embedded in Daoist cosmology, are visual representations of the balance and flow of natural forces, forming the foundation for both Bagua and the principles of yin and yang. The symbolic tools they hold in their hand emphasize their complementary roles, divine creation through craftsmanship, and the establishment of universal order. Their creative act and divine union mirrors the Daoist alchemical process, which seeks to harmonize and transmute energies in order to achieve balance and enlightenment. So let's look at these silk paintings again. So these 2 snakes intertwined, doesn't this remind you of something? Could it be the caduceus, or the staff of Hermes, or perhaps the DNA double helix? Perhaps there's this one when the compass and the carpenter square tool are joined, which will come back later. Also, on the side of the silk scrolls are these constellations, stars, or maybe the Hétú Luòshū, the river map Luò writing, and maybe the Bagua, which the I Ching comes from. Or perhaps it reminds you of the Kundalini energy rising upwards. So let me know in the comments what you think. The silk paintings depicting Fuxi and NuWa with intertwined serpent bodies was excavated from the Astana Cemetery near Turfan, modern-day Xinjiang, China. The artifact dates back to the Tang Dynasty, which is 618 to 907 CE. Their depiction with intertwined serpentine tails may have been influenced by cross-cultural exchanges along ancient trade routes like the Silk Road. Similarities in art and mythological motifs can be observed across various ancient cultures, including India, Egypt, and Greece. In India, the concept of the intertwined serpents is reminiscent of the Naga, serpent deities in Hindu and Buddhist traditions, which also symbolizes protection, wisdom, and transformation. The interplay of masculine and feminine energies is also central to Indian cosmology, as seen in the union of Shiva and Shakti. In Egypt, the serpentine imagery in Egyptian mythology, such as the Ouroboros, a serpent eating its tail, represents the cycles of creation, destruction, and rebirth. Additionally, the balance between cosmic forces as seen in Egyptian deities like Osiris and Isis mirrors the themes found in NuWa and Fuxi's legend. In Greece, the intertwined serpent motif appears in Greek mythology with figures like Cadmus and Harmonia, and in the caduceus, which is the staff carried by Hermes. And it's often depicted with the 2 entwined snakes. These symbols convey themes of duality, harmony, and again, transformation. While direct evidence of influence, or the direction of influence rather, it's difficult to pinpoint Ancient China was not isolated, and the exchange of ideas, art, and mythology between these regions likely played a role in shaping such motifs as seen in the silk paintings. The universal appeal of the serpent as a symbol of renewal, fertility, and cosmic balance may have independently arisen in different cultures. I'm not the first to notice this, of course, but if you put the compass and the carpenter square together, it is the Freemasonic square and compass, which represents geometry, order, and moral conduct, which parallels the role of NuWa and Fuxi in creating and structuring the cosmos. However, the Chinese depiction predates the Freemasonry by a whole millennia, so maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe an archetype that we had extracted from the same stream of collective consciousness. Maybe the Akashic records? What do you think? One of the most iconic episodes in NuWa's legend is her act of repairing the heavens, 炼石補天. According to the myth, a catastrophic war between powerful deities broke out and caused the collapse of the celestial pillars, tearing a huge hole in the sky, and of course brought down chaos. Torrential floods, raging fires, and rampaging beasts threatened the survival of humanity once again. NuWa, driven by compassion and a sense of responsibility to protect her human creations, she undertook the monumental task of patching up the sky. She gathered 5 colored stones, and it represents the Wuxing, the 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, and she smelted them into a magical rock through alchemy. And I'm calling this rock the Philosopher's Stone, okay? Using this divine material, she was able to mend the hole in the sky, temporarily pausing the chaos and establishing order. So back to this Philosopher's Stone. Based on alchemical concepts, the Philosopher's Stone is said to harmonize the elements and repair any balance for the soul and grant enlightenment. I would argue, or as I received insights from my counsel, is that NuWa is doing the same thing for our personal alchemy, but she's doing it at a cosmic level in this allegory. So in order to support the heavens again, NuWa asked the favor of a giant tortoise for his sacrifice, and he used its 4 legs as pillars to replace the celestial support. So in addition, NuWa realized that the stone she created is not strong enough to hold the hole in the sky, and so she too decided to sacrifice herself in order to be powerful enough to mend the sky. So the act of sacrifice for both NuWa and the turtle and ingenuity not only saved the world, but also symbolizes her unique branch of divine femininity. It's maternal, it's generous. So I don't like to use the word like sacrifice, but more like it's an act of generosity and compassion. And also it's not passive. So anyway, she utilizes her inner wisdom to create the stone. The forces of the elements were embodied in the stone and her, which symbolizes the process of healing one's inner cosmos, achieving unity between yourself in the physical and in yourself in the spiritual realm. I hope I explained that well. NuWa's role as a creator and healer further reflects the power of divine feminine and its power to shape and restore. And the key thing about this type of divine feminine, it's not passive, it is dynamic. It is shaping reality through subtle forces and deep alchemical wisdom. And this story in Taoism illustrates the importance to cultivate the divine feminine energy, that it is also essential for spiritual growth for everyone because it can help balance the more forceful external energy we receive from the world. To underscore, if you repair the heaven within yourself by aligning your body, mind, and spirit with the Tao, you're also creating harmony within yourself and therefore with the world. Now let's talk a little bit about the snake archetype in NuWa's context. So snake symbolizes both creation and destruction. And in Taoism, of course, we got the metaphor for transformation as well, because it's death, rebirth, and renewal, right? Or creation, destruction, rebirth. So it's intertwined with the concept of transformation. We cannot separate the snake archetype with transformation because death is not the end. It is just a passage, which is very central to the inner alchemy, or through the purification stages in order to reach a state of enlightenment. So along with the snake symbology, it also reminds us that we are interconnected. All the 5 elements, right? They're not isolated, but it's all interconnected in a cyclical pattern. The Wuxing is the map of how all things are in constant flux, transforming each other. So just as the snake sheds its skin in a continuous cycle of renewal, the Wuxing describes how different elements give rise to creation and destruction. So we take that macro to a micro level. Our cells renew itself. We shed dead skin cells. And so it's a reminder that we have to constantly reevaluate what happens within us and without. So macro, micro, right? What are some of the things we are shedding right now on a daily basis? Food for thought. In Daoist alchemy, the process of self-transmutation mirrors the cycles in nature, just like the snake. So the goal is to constantly transform the inner elixir or life force through practices such as meditation, breath control, diet, and aligning with the cosmic flow of the 5 elements. And so it's an ever cycle, inner and outer dance, if you will. The snake's archetype or wisdom is reminding us that we too have the ability to shed old and limiting patterns and allow for new growth. And we too are constantly renewing and transforming because that's the way of the Tao. Will you consider embracing this kind of wisdom to unlock new potential in your life this year? Just putting it out there. So I looked into the etymology as well, since I find it infinitely fascinating. Nu is female or feminine, a woman, and Wa, you can see the root word. Female to the left, and on the right, I would say this character is seen in cave or den. So it's used in these characters, which means like a shelter or a rock cave or a bird's nest or a den, or to conceal or hide. And so you can see in many divine feminine practices, we are in different cultures, we practice in a cave or the cave of the snake. So can you see it in the way the character looks? It's like, you know, retreating inwards, right? And there's like an entrance there, like a cave. So it's also used in the character for snail, guanyo, which is also used in the cochlear duct in your ear because it kind of looks like that, right? Your ear or a snail. Sacred geometry, by the way. The final reference is NuWa, which means a frog, but you can see NuWa, NuWa in the sound, right? So it is perhaps where it comes from, that it's describing her amphibian nature, you know, like a frog resides in the land and water, and NuWa is half woman, half snake, or half human and half divine, so to speak. Ultimately, it's an alchemical reference and kind of brilliant. And this is why I am a proponent of preserving traditional Chinese characters, because you can learn so much with just 2 characters and 2 syllables, and all the subtle meaning, it just can't be replaced. But anyway, I digress. I also want to posit that NuWa could also be like a mermaid, because that would check out too. Half woman, half, you know, reptilian or snake, so, or maybe a fishtail. From the myth of NuWa, the snake archetype, and the wisdom of the Wuxing, as well as the transformative practices of Daoist alchemy, we can see a theme of balance, harmony, creation, and renewal. These ancient teachings, or rather mythology, allegories, remind us that just like the snake shaking its skin, we too can transform both within and without by embracing the divine feminine energy of NuWa, which is innovation, resourcefulness, using the 5 elements. It is sacrifice, or I would use the word generosity, and giving nature for the desire to create harmony. We can align ourselves with the cosmic forces that shape the universe to find harmony in the cycles of life and death, creation and destruction, or creation, destruction, renewal. So thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of divine femininity and a cross-cultural discussion on the snake symbolism and the alchemy via the Chinese creation myth of NuWa. May you find some wisdom in this allegory and mythology to be inspired by the serpent as we embark on the Ying wood snake year in 2025. Let us all remember that we can constantly renew and shed our skin too, and that we too have the power to transform. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more interesting topics like this for wisdom and spiritual and personal growth. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.